Let's talk about cussing at work. What? Oh, hell yes. Article from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune proposing that people are swearing more at work. Do you have a problem with that? 663-1270. See, I don't. It's no big deal to me. So, but you weigh in on this. When you're working, when you're at the job, when you're at the office or the factory or whatever, and the guy next to you slips an F-bomb, does that bother you? You have a problem with that. 663-1270. Jim Walsh on Super Talk 1270, supertalk1270.com. Sitting in today for the folks from Free for All Friday, taking the holiday weekend off. So I thought I'd jump in. We could kind of hash things out a little bit here. You see, article from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. Now, as language grows more profane, office talk takes a turn for the curse. Oh, isn't that just adorable? Don't you love the little play on words they have there? And the F-bomb, of course, well, any cuss word, although not all cuss words are created equal. We know that. There was a time when you couldn't say pregnant in public. Pregnant? You can't say that in public? Yeah. Now you can say a lot of things. There are still certain things you can't say, though. There are still certain things that make people a little bit edgy. You know the words I'm talking about. So, and there are people who swear a lot in general, and it's a lot less taboo than it used to be. But is it a problem on the job? Are people too sensitive about this? Is it, in the words of an acquaintance, a hostile workplace lawsuit waiting to happen? 663-1270. Now, in my situation, it's not that big a deal. You reach a certain age, I think, where it's no longer necessary to show everybody how cool you are by the amount of naughty words you can say. As a rule, over the years, now I did have one job. It was between radio jobs where I worked in an office with a lot of middle-aged women. And I was careful not to swear. I don't think I ever did. I worked there 3 years. I don't think I let slip one of the big words one time. You would think people would be more careful about that, but then you look at social media, and what do you see? Yep. You look at Facebook. Mm-hmm. So is it a problem for you? 663-1270. Love to get your comments on this. Language growing more profane. You know, you draw the line in a certain place, and then they move the line. It's like, whoa. There's a book out here. It's called What the F? What Swearing Reveals About Our Language, Our Brains, and Ourselves. Language is always evolving, which causes tension. You remember, of course, George Carlin with his 7 words you can't say on television. For the most part, you still can't say those words. There's a couple you can say now. But for the most part, you still can't say them on TV or radio. But what about around the office? Do you have a problem with that? Love to hear from you on this. 663-1270. The article here from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune mentions that there was a time when saying the G word, when saying God on the air, just saying the word would get people all worked up. There are parts of the country where that's still the case, by the way. You go down in a place like Wilmington, North Carolina, and go on the radio and say something about God, and people go nuts. You say damn or hell, people wig out. Well, where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? Are people getting too sensitive about this? Great question. And something else I have to pose here. I don't want to get into a heavy political thing here. That's not what this show is about. But have to ask, doesn't it bother you a bit, regardless of how you feel about the man, that the President of the United States seems to have nothing better to do with his time than getting to pissing matches on Twitter? You may have heard about the whole thing this week with Joe Scarborough and his sidekick, Micah Brzezinski. The president got into it on Twitter with those two, and he fired at them, they fired back. Isn't this kind of ridiculous for the president, the guy with his finger on the button, the guy who's supposed to be doing all these big-time important things, just to think that there's actually a point in his day where he thinks, I got nothing better to do now, then I'm going to get on Twitter and I'm going to tweet some things. In generally, we like to think that people who spend too much time on social media, we like to think that's not a healthy thing. What about the guy in charge of the free world? Huh? 663-1270. Jim Walsh, Super Talk 1270. More conversation, your calls coming up.
Right now, 62.
Here's Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons on Super Talk 1270.
What about a person who spends all his time in whizzing matches on Twitter? Like a certain president of a certain large country in the North American continent who we could mention by name, but we won't. You know what we're talking about, the whole Scarborough and the Micah thing. Doesn't it kind of bug you that it seems like this guy has nothing better to do with his time than tweet people? 663-1270. Now, a little background on the story. Micah Brzezinski, Joe Scarborough, firing back at a Twitter attack from the president, saying that Mr. Trump is not mentally equipped to continue watching their show. They penned a scathing column published in the Washington Post to respond to his tweets from yesterday, in which he referred to Ms. Brzezinski as low IQ crazy and Mr. Scarborough as psycho. They also appeared on the show Friday morning, this morning, saying they delayed vacation plans to be there. Oh. Brzezinski said it's been fascinating and frightening and really sad for our country. You know what? Here's a possible angle on this that you may not have considered, or you may not think it's possible, but it is possible. It's possible that this whole thing is a work. It's possible that the president is doing this because he knows that they will respond to it. It's all about getting press. It's all about getting people to talk about what you're saying. But even if that's true, and nobody would ever say that Donald Trump is not an expert on the art of promoting himself. But if that's true, does it bother you? Do you have a problem with that? Do you have a problem with the idea that the leader of the free world apparently has nothing better to do with his time than getting to these urination matches on social media? You'd think he'd be off doing important stuff like trying to figure out what North Korea is doing or Russia or whatever. You would think, wouldn't you? No, you got a problem with that? I mean, people who spend, we generally agree, people who spend too much time on social media, they probably have issues. My guess is he's doing it all for effect, and they're doing it for effect, and they all know they're doing it for effect. But isn't that in and of itself kind of something that concerns you a little bit? I would think it would. 663-1270, 663-1270. Back to Micah Brzezinski. She says, I'm fine. My family brought me up really tough. It's nothing. Let me find the quotes here. The actual quotes from Twitter. Let me see if I got them here. I got the Kramer article. I'm not going to bother with the Kramer thing because I know that Mr. Heitkamp. Well, Kramer's comment, Micah is the epitome of the left-wing liberal elitist snob, which is a totally meaningless statement. It's just got all the right words in it. Liberal, elitist, left-wing. I wouldn't call her what she's doing. I don't know how you get to calling it snobbery. I just don't. Somewhere here, well, basically, you know what he said about her. You know what Mr. Trump said about Ms. Brzezinski. And you know what they said in response. Don't we have better things to do with our time? In the piece for the Washington Post, the host, who recently announced their engagement, I didn't know that. Hey, they're engaged? Okay, cool. They hit back at the president for his unusually harsh comments about them and their show, writing about his obsession with Morning Joe, refuting every part of the claims in his tweets, and railing against his continued mistreatment of women. The president's tweets targeted Brzezinski in particular. He attacked her physical appearance, as he has done repeatedly, in responding critically to women, writing that she was bleeding badly from a facelift during a visit to his Mar-a-Lago, Florida property. Here we go. Mar-a-Lago, 3 nights in a row around New Year's Eve, insisted on joining me. She was bleeding badly from a facelift. I said no. He said no. No. What'd he say? Try it again.
No.
That's what he, yes. Say it again.
No.
Oh, okay, one more time.
N-O.
Thank you. Brzezinski and Scarborough caught his apparent fixation on their show an unhealthy obsession, noting they weren't surprised by the nasty tweets because of previous comments Trump has made about the co-host and the show. Unhealthy obsession, whatever. You know, it kind of goes hand in hand with this article, this topic about cussing on the job. Generally, it's the same kind of people, isn't it? The people who are inclined to say naughty words on the job around the office. Hopefully you get to a certain age. I would say by the time you get to 30, if you can't get through the day without throwing an F-bomb around the office, you've got issues. Does it offend me? No. The other topic was, do you think the idea of cussing on the job is getting out of hand in our society? As some people feel, obviously, we have moved the line over the years. And there was a day when you couldn't say pregnant on the radio or around the office. It was considered an impolite thing to say. Now you can say a lot of things, and some people say pretty much anything on the job. Is that something that kind of sticks in your craw a bit? That is the question. 663-1270. When I worked in an office, I was careful not to swear. You would think people would be more careful about that in most orthodox business circumstances. I say orthodox business because working in radio, well, radio is kind of weird. You know, you would think that working at a radio station, people would be extremely diligent about not swearing in the presence of a microphone that's potentially open. And sending your message to the world. And a lot of studios around this building, a lot of microphones. You never really know if a given microphone, it's like a gun. You treat every gun as if it's loaded. You treat every microphone as if it's on. You would think that people in the radio would be very diligent about that. They'd be very careful, but not necessarily. There's something about broadcasters. They just love to push their limits. I don't know what it is. Good morning. You're on Super Talk 1270. Whoops. Number here, 663-1270. Hi, you're on Super Talk 1270. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim.
Hey.
You have 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
I have 2 answers.
All right, lay them on me.
One is there is no bad words. There's bad thoughts about that word, so shame on those people that think those thoughts.
Okay. Evil to he that thinks evil, as my daddy would say. Go ahead.
And the second one is the tweets. He can't deny any of that stuff or blame anybody else. It's all him. I like him.
Okay. Thank you. Take care. Thank you. Take care. Yeah, it's not about being a Trump hater or a Trump lover. I am neither. The guy's actually said and done one or two things that I liked. Not a lot of things, but one or two things. I'm not one of these guys who hates him across the board. Okay, I want to make that clear. I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for Hillary or vote for Gary Johnson, but, I think all politicians are crooks anyway. But it's more about, the question was, what does it bother you that this guy's the president of the United States, for crying out loud, and he's spending all this copious amount of free time tweeting and getting into these whizzing matches with people like Joe Scarborough and his lady friend, Ms. Brzezinski. Now, let's assume for the moment that he's got somebody doing it for him. That is very possible. It's possible that it's not even him doing this, that he sat down and he made a calculated decision to bring somebody in and said to them, now look, I want you to get on Twitter and come up with all these wacky, goofy messages. You can tell people it's from me. You can do it with my name and my account. People will think it's me, and it will generate a lot of talk, a lot of conversation. And that's a good thing. It's entirely possible that, Trump is not a stupid guy. And he is obviously an expert at promoting himself. But if he is doing that, does it bother you that he would feel the need to do that? Interesting question, don't you think? Hi, you're on Super Talk 1270. Whoops, try it again. Hi, Super Talk 1270, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that he's really never really grown up in his life. He still acts like a little kid.
Yeah, well.
The other jobs I've worked at, the same thing would happen with people, and they find out later on that they had a lot of problems in their life when they was a kid.
Now, you're talking about the Trump thing, right, with the whizzing matches on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many people on the job do things like that that you work with?
Well, in radio, I know quite a few, but, radio is kind of an extension of showbiz, and we have a lot of very immature people in this line of work, I can assure you.
Well, it takes a radical to get into something like that.
Well, yeah, it takes every kind of people to make the world. Hey, I appreciate the call.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. All right, we're rolling here, baby. We're hot. We're happening. We're out of control. 663-1270. Love to hear from you. Does it bother you that the President of the United States is spending all this time getting into it with people, mixing it up on Twitter? 663-1270. Super Talk 1270. Supertalk1270.com. More conversation. Your calls coming up.
Right now, 62.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
Do you agree with the fireworks ban? Do you think it's un-American? Yes, I know there's a drought going on, but think of it this way. What about on your own property? If you can launch a firecracker on your own property, have it come down on your own property, and if you're going to be the one responsible for putting out the fire on your own property, if there is one, where is the problem? 663-1270. Seems kind of un-American to me, Jim Walsh at Supertalk 1270 and Supertalk1270.com. Yeah, I don't get it. What about things like, now the city of Lincoln, it's interesting, the city of Lincoln, where, of course, every year is very famous for all the people in these neighborhoods with their own little firecrackers going off. Okay, the M80s probably wouldn't be a good idea to shoot an M80 if you live next to the woods. Okay, we'll give you that one. But here's the thing, if you're talking about like little cherry bomb type things that you light in the driveway, and they're not going to fly up in the air. They're just going to sit there and make some sparks, and it's all happening on your property. Well, what if you water down your property real good and then start setting them off? Wouldn't that be okay? Wouldn't that be? The police in Lincoln are saying that they're taking I love this phrase, zero-tolerance approach to enforcing the ban on fireworks this year. Do you feel violated because of that? Do you feel like the law is overstepping itself in this particular case? Here's the number, 663-1270. Jim Walsh on Super Talk 1270 in today for Free for All Friday. We thank the folks from Free for All Friday, all of them, for decided to take a little time off for the holiday, and that's cool. Got the 3-day holiday coming up, and by the way, if you're wondering what's going on, if you're kind of bummed out by the burn ban, bear in mind, there is going to be a fireworks display on the 4th after the big rodeo, the Mandan Rodeo. After the rodeo's over, they're going to have a big old fireworks demonstration. Well, what exactly do they do? What exactly do the experts do that make it okay for them to set off fireworks? Do they? I don't know. I mean, do they water down the lawn? Do they water down the field? Maybe. I don't know. But here's my question: if you're doing it on your own private property, is there anything really wrong with it? Especially if you're talking about the small stuff. The little cherry bomb firecracker thingies like you buy at some stores. You know, in some states you can go into like a convenience store and they're sitting right there on the shelf, right up there in the front. And get yourself a pack of gum and a pack of cigarettes and give me some of them firecrackers over there. Yeah, off we go. Firecrackers is one of those things. You think of the Lincoln thing. And if you live in Lincoln, you know what we're talking about here. You can drive around, and I've done it on the night of 4th of July evening. You drive around the town of Lincoln and just look at everybody going crazy in their driveways with their fireworks. Not this year, though. The police are cracking down. They've already said, and you should know, they've already said no warnings will be given. This year, it's zero tolerance. I hate that phrase. It sounds so fascistic.
We will have zero tolerance for the thing there. Mein Führer.
I don't want to get into the Hitler thing again, but... And I know, yes, we know there's a drought going on. But if it's on your property, if you're talking about a few little crackly, poppily things on your driveway, is there anything really wrong with that? How is that going to be a problem? Keep a hose handy. Keep your water turned on, have it raring to go in case there's a problem. And nip it in the bud. Again, if it's on your property, why should it make any difference to anybody else? If it gets on their property, that's one thing. Well, let's assume you have a decent-sized home with a decent-sized yard, and you have maybe a driveway. Where's the problem? Am I missing something here? Am I being naive? 663-1270. 663-1270. Just seems to me that a lot of people are going to miss out. A lot of kids are going to miss out on the opportunity of seeing their dads and their uncles burn their fingers big time. And we all know what a lot of fun that is on 4th of July weekend. That's one of the best things about the holiday is seeing Dad trying not to blow his fingers off with the little firecracker thingies. So isn't it kind of un-American to stop people from using any type of firecrackers? I mean, where do you draw the line? I'm about firing up a cigarette. I mean, firing up a cigar. You know, some people like to smoke a big cigar for the 4th of July. It's just their way of celebrating. You're going to stop them from doing that? You know, a cigar is a potential fire. You know, there's a little cherry in the cigar. It could get off and go and start a fire somewhere if you're not careful. But if you're going to sit there in your own driveway and smoke a cigar, are they going to bother you about that? Well, I would hope not. But how is that different from a smaller version of a firecracker if you're taking all the necessary precautions? Go figure. So anyway, if you want to know what's happening around town, there's plenty to do this weekend. There's a lot going on. I mentioned the rodeo, of course. That's happening in Mandan. Check it all out for yourself. All kinds of great things happening. Go to the website, supertalk1270.com. Find out what's going on. Big pot bust in Berthold, North Carolina. Happened Tuesday night. leading to the seizure of 122 pounds of high-grade marijuana, believed to be one of the largest marijuana seizures in North Dakota history. What is it with North Dakota where they refuse to acknowledge the reality that the war on drugs is on the way out, especially where it concerns something as insignificant as marijuana? Got a picture here. It was in the Fargo paper. And, of course, the Fargo Forum is probably the nearest thing we have to a real, for all its obvious political bias, it's probably the nearest thing we have to a real newspaper in the state of North Dakota. And there's a picture of the chief of Berthold, the police department, with his police dog. Cool dog, by the way. Great dog. It's like a black Labrador. I loved him. Labs rock. So there's a picture of the chief here standing in front of 122 pounds of marijuana, all bagged up and sitting on a table. And obviously, one would assume that the chief is quite satisfied with the job that he and his people have done in bagging all this stuff. But looking at the big picture, isn't it kind of a waste that we still have our police running around catching people for trafficking marijuana in a state like North Dakota? Come on. Come on. It's pot. What's the big deal here? In this state, so many people insist on continuing with the outmoded Nixon and Reagan policies of drugs are bad, okay? Like the guy on South Park. Value of the seized marijuana estimated to be $600,000, according to the Berthold Police Department. Stopped a vehicle for speeding on Highway 2, resulting in the arrest of the driver on suspicion of marijuana, intend to deliver, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, think of what they could do with the taxes from $600,000 worth of marijuana. What are they going to do with it as it is? Usually they just burn it, right? They destroy it. They take it out back and they throw it into a big fire and they burn it up, and there it goes, all for nothing. $500,000 worth of weed. And you think about what you could do with the taxes that you would make on something like that if it were legal and taxed out the wazoo, as it should be. But no, here in good old North Dakota, we got to do it the way the war on drugs. Yeah, just say no to drugs. Yep. And I have no axe to grind in this. I'm not a weed smoker. Hell, I'm hardly even a drinker anymore. I hardly ever. Last drink I had was about a month ago. I got some wine. Had some wine in the back of the fridge. Got it out. It had been there a while. It was tasting kind of vinegary, so we tossed it. And I don't smoke weed at all. But come on here, guys. Come on, you're getting ridiculous with this whole war on drugs thing. It's time to get into the 21st century, even if you have to be dragged kicking and screaming to do so. 663-1270. Jim Walsh on Super Talk 1270 with more conversation, your calls, and some summer fun stuff coming up.